At first glance, the roar of a crowd and the quiet strategy of a boardroom might seem like two different worlds. But dig a little deeper and you'll find surprising overlap. The grit it takes to push through a tough race, the ability to rally a team, and the resilience to bounce back from adversity are the same traits that define great leaders in business. In this episode, Tamara Stoner with Delaware State University and Ted Lauzen of Gray Fox Wealth reflect on how their time in sports fueled an edge in their careers, and how those same skills continue to guide their success today. Let's jump in. We are back with another episode of the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce's podcast, which now has a new and improved name, the Delaware Deep Dive. I'm Kelly Basil, COO at the State Chamber, and today I have two really exciting guests with me. Tamara Stoner, University Secretary and AVP of Auxiliary Services at Delaware State University, and Ted Lauzen, Partner at Gray Fox Wealth. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I am so excited about this episode. We asked both of you to be on the show because we wanted to highlight two Delaware leaders who have a high-level athletic background and showcase the strong correlation between athletic backgrounds and leadership success. We did an article in Delaware Business Magazine last fall about it. A lot of people found it really interesting and exciting to learn about people in our community in that way. So I am looking forward to spotlighting two new people. So I just want to start off by sharing an article I found with Jobs for the Future. And I'm going to read it verbatim, just a paragraph. But approximately 7.8 million high school student athletes and over 530,000 student athletes are competing at the collegiate level. However, we do little in the workplace to formally recognize the transferable skills these athletes are developing, likely underestimating their value. Today, as more employers consider skills-first hiring in their approach to an ever-changing world of work and learning, sports skills acquisition can provide a powerful case study beyond traditional systems. I found that really interesting because I don't think people, especially employers and those entering the workforce, remember that sports are a value add on a resume or in an interview. And it's certainly important when you're working on a team or managing people within a company. And so that's really why we're here today, is to just kind of explore all of that. Before we jump into that, I do want to give you both the opportunity to share with our listeners who you are and what you do. I did share your titles, but there's so much meaning behind those titles. So Tamara, if you want to go first.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm Tamara Stoner again, and I work at Delaware State University, and I work as the University Board Secretary as well as an Assistant Vice President for Auxiliary Services. So I manage very important contracts for the university and also some real estate contracts as well as it relates to the university. Track and field is my sport, and I started off running at the age of 9, and I later took it very, very serious when I entered into high school in Dalcastle. It was an amazing opportunity that was presented to me by the coach. He saw something in me that I didn't truly see in myself and came to speak to my parents. And again, that is the point where I really took it very, very seriously. So by the time I became a junior in high school, I was first in the nation in the 400 meters. And that is when I broke a record. That is when I broke the record for the 400 meters indoor at the state meet, which was held at University of Delaware. And from that, I began to get recognized at various universities across the U.S. and didn't know it was all new to me, obviously, and didn't know which way to go. But I did have a wonderful coach in Coach Ernest Anderson, who parented me through. Yeah. He not only coached me through it, but he parented me through the process. And so I was able to choose a really amazing school, which was West Virginia University, Morgantown. Let's go, Mountaineers.
You know Helena Rodriguez went there?
I absolutely do.
Okay,
love her dearly. We talk about it all the time. So there's my D1 WVU success story, and I'm a very proud alum of WVU.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Ted?
That's absolutely incredible.
Thank you, Ted.
That's awesome. Kelly, wonderful to be here with you today. I am the co-founder and partner of Gray Fox Wealth Advisors. We provide investment management and multifamily office services to small business owners, executives, and their families throughout the first state. I grew up outside of Chicago. Went to Duke for undergraduate. After Duke, flew 127 combat missions as a light attack helicopter pilot in Afghanistan. Came back from Afghanistan, competed on Team USA. Wow. But best of all, married a Delawarean. Yes. And so Sarah, my wife Sarah, and I have 4 young kids. We live right down the street here. When you are not as good as Tamara as a runner, to go from one sport into multiple sports. And so, throughout my time, I actually grew up as a track guy, a half miler. Yeah. So I enjoyed, that 400 and that 800. You just kind of run, and then you don't feel good for the rest of the day.
Exactly. The rest of the week.
Yes. When done well.
Yes.
And so my times were not as fast as your times. And so as, I got a little bit older, started to expand into what's called the modern pentathlon. The modern pentathlon has 5 sports across one day: pistol shooting, fencing, swimming, horseback riding, and running. Wow. There are about as many people in this room as would usually come and watch our competitions, so it's nothing too impressive. But it was a fabulous exposure to a lot of different experiences across the board, and eventually had the opportunity to compete for Team USA on a couple World Cup and World Championship teams, culminating at the 2015 World Championships in Berlin.
That's amazing.
Both just incredibly impressive careers, and I think most people in Delaware know, but I have to, just in case, just mention that this topic is very near and dear to my heart as an athlete as well. Grew up figure skating. I did individual figure skating and ice dancing at a pretty high level through high school.
Amazing. Cool.
And then this is how I got to Delaware, actually. I came to the University of Delaware to compete on the synchronized skating team, which at that time was second in the nation. And I still compete today on an adult team for the University.
That's
really?
great.
I placed 4th at nationals just a couple months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
So thank you. And it's funny, Ted, awesome. You're saying Tamara is just so much more impressive than you, and I'm looking at the two of you thinking, wow, your careers are more impressive than me, and maybe that's humility that comes from being an athlete.
I think it absolutely is. And the appreciation for the effort that goes into each of those
you just know how
practices.
hard the other is working.
Absolutely.
So thank you both for sharing. Tamara, you mentioned how you got into track, but Ted, it sounds like started this sport later in life. How did you get there?
So, it is amazing how so many fundamental and meaningful parts of life are chance and are just the wildness of different moments across our lives making big trajectories. And so I was actually competing in the half mile at the Illinois State Championships. And as coaches and, our parents always stand at the 200, kind of cheer you on the other side of the track. Yeah. My father happened to stand next to this, kind of multi-time Olympic coach, Joe Newton, who was cheering on his York team, which was one of the more successful high school programs in the country, because he had a runner who was running against me, and that guy smoked me. And then went on to win a couple national championships for Stanford. But Coach Newton was kind enough that, he said, oh, well, your son did a nice job. Clearly not going to set state records. But, I've also heard of his name in the swimming context and some of these others. He should check out this thing called modern pentathlon. And so, it was about, I believe that was like sophomore year of high school or so. And so we, started going to some of the camps and, out in Colorado Springs and down in San Antonio, where the Olympic training centers were at the time. And it blossomed into a really neat experience, both on the athletic side, but also just on the athlete, person-to-person side. Because as you might imagine, there are only a handful of modern pentathletes around the world who are competing at the highest of levels. And so maybe there's 500 or 1,000 folks around the world who are going to, qualifying into these world championships and World Cups. And so you get a chance to become really close with people at that international level.
It's awesome.
So let's take this and now apply it to your professional careers. Do you find that the training, the relationships, the discipline that you have gained from training in your sports, do you apply that today?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of elements beyond sport that provide great value across the professional spectrum. But it's that that concept of preparation mattering, and it's even more so. I think it's the preparation outside of the scenarios in which people are watching. So it's the preparation late at night, it's the preparation early in the morning, it's the preparation in between meetings that build to that professional success. And then I think it's some of the resiliency that as a 400 runner, as a modern pentathlete, there are good days and there are bad days.
Yes.
And there's the opportunity to recognize and learn through time that bad days are just steps along the process to more good days.
And I totally agree with you on that. And just to speak to the resiliency aspect of it, to understand wins and losses, because you don't win every race. You're not going to lose every race, we hope.
You're not
but
always going
you're
to break a record and keep it for 30 years.
Oh, yeah. And there's that. But the ability to be able to translate into the professional world, how you have to be adaptable, because you may plan, and strategize, pre-plan and strategize. But when it comes down to it, when you're in the race, in the heat of the battle, when you're preparing for that major board meeting or major event, whatever that is, sometimes you get these unexpected things that happen. You may fall. There's weather changes. There's all kind of elements that come into play that change your strategy in the moment. So everything you plan for can just be blown away in a moment. And so with athleticism, you have to know that you can adapt to any situation and you have to be ready to do that. So
I so agree with that. And I feel like that's something that I apply every day too in figure skating. We fall too.
Yeah.
And it can be devastating in a program. But then you have to be so quick. And so that mental strength, if you will, in the moment to, okay, I fell. That's going to affect my score. How can I make up those points in real time? And so being able to think on your feet and adapt is just so important. And also the mindset too of the controllables and the uncontrollables. Yes. I feel like I apply so much in a day. Especially with the chamber, we do a lot of events, and so we have to remind ourselves, okay, that was a controllable, and the weather wasn't uncontrollable.
Yes.
It's a golf outing. We can't control thunderstorms. And so just having that mindset, I think, does really build to the resiliency.
And it's amazing how not always the same set of skills available in non-athletic things. You actually have to be very intentional in a non-athletic scenario to go out and find those types of life lessons.
Yes.
And I think people do that very, very well. Athletes benefit from the fact that the structures that teach those lessons of not always winning, of bouncing back, especially mid-routine, my goodness, are already kind of built for all of us.
And I agree with that totally, because with athleticism, it's like it's second nature for us, because we've started at a very, very young age to think a certain way, to be a certain way, to develop sort of that kind of discipline that we need. And then coming into adulthood, getting a job, being able to translate that into professionalism, it's just incredible. Yeah.
Can either of you think of, a specific instance in your athletic career where you did deal with some sort of adversity that just taught you this huge lesson that you can now apply as a professional? These are always fun stories.
Oh, wow.
That was a big question too.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Go into the archives.
Yeah, let me dig deep right here. So I could remember back when I was a junior and being at the state meet, trying to just overcome fear. Because a lot of times when you're doing something for the first time, or you've done it a million times over, but you're still not quite confident in yourself. And then putting yourself back into that situation again, it's like, okay, you have to develop this mental toughness to know that you can do it, and you got to be confident, and you're speaking to yourself and you're speaking life into yourself that you're able to do this, and you can see what it's going to look like, because sometimes you got to visualize the victory. You got to visualize it. And oftentimes we don't do that, even when we're in the boardroom and when we're in the workplace. And to take you back to that year and to that moment as a junior at the state meet, sometimes people can sense that fear. Your opponents can sense that fear. People around you, other competing businesses, they can sense, your weaknesses.
The insecurities.
The insecurities and things like that. But you can't show them your cards. You cannot. You got to protect yourself, right? You got to protect that business, that company that you represent. And so when I got on the line, usually athletes that are, with the quickest, fastest times or the most likely to win, they kind of center them in the track in the middle somewhere. But for me, I came in with one of the fastest times and they put me in like lane 1 or lane 2. Yeah. And so I was already feeling like the weight of the world was on my shoulders.
Oh, no.
And so I'm like, now I have to look at them, all of these people, they're going to beat me. I'm just like terrified in that moment. And then I remembered something, and I tell this, it's a scripture that I talk to myself about, and it says, God has not given me the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. I can do this. And I just begin to speak those words to myself. And then it became a reality. And I tell you, when that gun went off, I don't know what took me around that track twice, because in indoor track, it's 200 meters and you got to go around twice to get the 400. So it was like, So when that gun went off, it was like I felt so empowered. It's like every step I ran, the fear just left. It is like I was just leaving it on a trail behind. And
That's beautiful.
Broke a record in that. And so ever so grateful. So I always feel that, like, if I'm in a work setting and I'm doing a presentation or whatever the case might be, and I'm maybe not so confident in the topic that I'm discussing, I've done my research, I've prepared, I've done everything that I needed to do. I just have to remember who I am and that confidence factor. Yeah, I'm prepared. I can do this.
Yes.
And that's how I apply it.
That's a great story. And Ted, before I let you share yours, you said something that made me reflect on my most recent season with my synchro team. Last season, I was pregnant last season, so I didn't skate. But I kept myself rostered on the team because I liked to still hang out with them. But they didn't qualify for nationals, and it was devastating for us. And I don't mean for this to come across the wrong way, but we were used to qualifying, so it was a really huge hit. And so having to accept that and also know too that we did put out our best that day, the uncontrollable, if you will. So coming back to this most recent season, we had a lot of fire, and it was actually a podcast that my friend and I listened to, a figure skating podcast, very niche. But they talked about just showing up as if every single day was competition day. Dress ready, come in with the right mindset, act like this is it, because that just trains you in a way that you can take on anything.
Yes.
And so in figure skating, we do our hair, we put on makeup. So, it's a 6 a.m. practice while we're in Boston for a competition, and we put the lipstick on because we're showing up. And so I feel like I treat work like that so often, where it's like I'm showing up, game ready. Ted, sorry to. I know I asked the question of you too, and I jumped
that.
in. But,
I love that.
No, just both fabulous experiences, and there's like lots of like really big experiences that leave marks like that, and in both of those scenarios, setting records, competing at the nationals. I think there's also a lot of kind of small moments that hit you when right in that like moment of that trajectory when you need it most. And I always think about whether it's in business or it's in athletics or it's just kind of socially, the value of mentors and coaches and
Yes.
folks who care deeply and have seen the world and seen that set of experiences a little bit more. And so I always think of like kind of two coaching instances. One, that Coach Joe Newton outside of Chicago, once told everybody, we have distinct choices, kind of to your point, Kelly, each and every day in each and every practice. We can be average, we can be good, or we can be great. Mm-hmm. And those are our choices. That's our choice set. It doesn't matter. The good day, the bad day, we get to choose average, good, or great. And that has always stuck with me from those early days. And then, one of the more recent experiences, on Team USA, we had, some tremendous coaches. And they'd give insights all the time, and you do all this nutrition stuff. But then the one that I think stuck with me the most was after I was a good runner on the team. I was a good fencer on the team. I was not a great swimmer on the team. And so everybody comes, in 5 sports, you have your strengths and you have your weaknesses. And I remember finishing a hard swim workout toward kind of the back of the pack. And my coach walked over, just looked at me and goes, "Well, Ted, it's 7 p.m. Pool's open till 10 if you want to keep going."
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm going to
Hint.
And it was, it wasn't, you have to keep going. Mm-hmm. It was, there is an opportunity for you to improve.
Yes.
And you can make that choice. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, he could have yelled, and he did yell but he couldn't, and it was all those things, but it was, here's the chance. Mm-hmm. You can improve if you would like to.
Yes.
The choice is yours.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Excellent.
Okay, so maybe I need to understand Ted, your sport a little bit better, but I have a question about like individual sports versus team sports and how that kind of applies in a work environment. Mm-hmm. So speaking for myself, I grew up as an individual skater. It was all about me, myself, and I, and what I needed to accomplish. And in figure skating, you have to spend a lot of time to be good. I went to high school for half a day so that I could go train. I didn't get as much of a social life growing up. So going into college, that was really important to me. And so I chose synchronized skating because it was a team sport, so that I could feel what it was like to be a part of a team. And that was really huge. I've learned that I much rather be on a team. Having that support system and being able to problem solve together, be creative together. That was what was missing for me growing up. And I really reflect on that now here at the Chamber. We're extremely collaborative and creative together. Regina's here recording with us and she's nodding. We thrive on that together, and that's how we make each other better. So that's something that I really learned from switching from individual to teams. And I'm curious if you have any perspective on individual sports versus team and what you learn from the other.
Yeah, I like that a lot because it's about collaboration. It's about teamwork. It's about balancing each other out and knowing that, if you do your part, then it's going to affect the other person and it's going to raise the level of the work, right? And you're going to get the end result quicker if you're doing it all together, and you'll reach that goal, that anticipated goal. So for me in track and field, it would be relay races, right? So for the 4x4, which is 4 people running the 400 around the track. And so knowing that, hey, if I don't do my part on my leg, if I'm not disciplining myself, if I'm not showing up for the practices, if I'm not practicing those baton exchanges to make sure that we are all in sync and we have a good flow with our group and with our team, that the complete construction of the group is aligned, then I'm the weakest link, right? And I could bring my team down, and at the end of the day, what is it that we want? The goal that we're looking for is first place, or at least to medal, right? And so we want to be on the stand, right? Yes. And it's not going to be 2 people of the 4. It's not going to be 2 people get a gold, 1 person gets a silver, and the other person gets a bronze. That's not going to happen. Either we all get the gold or we all get the silver or we all get the bronze. And we have to understand that even in the professional world, that we are a team and we work as one unit. You have your part, I have my part, and so on and so forth. Yes.
Together it all works.
And it all works.
And I do think that that's always been such a neat element of track or swimming, or that like individual sport that has a bit of a team element there, because you do have the opportunity to coordinate in those handoffs,
Yes, right.
everything that's important, because you can, run a 400, you can run a 100 meter as fast as humanly possible. But if you drop the baton in the middle of it, it's not going to matter.
Game over.
Game over.
Modern pentathlon is primarily an individual sport, and so you get the opportunity to do all 5 sports across the day. And so, but there were instances in which at both the World Championships and at different World Cups and international competitions where you could do like a relay. And so we got a little bit of a chance to do that. And, what I was always so excited about those relays is that the swimming was half.
Yeah.
And so, that's an immediate win there. But what I've always enjoyed about the individual nature of sport on the individual competition side is like the clear set of metrics that, on a track, in a pool, you swim the same distance, you run the same distance as everybody else, and it's up to you. And there's a neat kind of element of control there and of responsibility. And I think that's probably where that fear comes in a little bit too.
Yes.
But the ability as a person to overcome that and be responsible for the preparation that goes into it and the outcome that comes from it, knowing your controllables and your uncontrollables. But it is amazing and so I've always found that to be a huge value in the professional setting of understanding that we need to measure things, that we need to hold ourselves responsible, that there's lots and lots and always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
And then as you transition to that relay kind of experience, or the team sports, and I wish I had been a better soccer player or a better lacrosse player, that would have been much cooler.
I think
But-
decathlon is really cool.
I know. I'm like, that is incredible that you've done all these sports in one.
You ride
They're
horses
literally
and
separate
fence.
sports.
Thank you. I'll take it. But when we move to those team sports, and you even get that as the track team, you get that as the pentathlon team, and it's the opportunity to build relationships that really matter, and that synchronized element, and to go through hard things together, and regardless of what level that hard thing is, but to go through challenging things together, tighten those bonds. And I think we see that in the workplace, very, very frequently. And we see the ability that when we bring our best talents forward, then we can all kind of proceed forward together across that line. And so it's neat to be able to compare and kind of mold those two experiences.
For sure. And so flipping this a little bit, so we just talked about teams working together, but there's also competition. And I think I can speak for both of you that while training, you may be training with people, but they're also your competitor.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could apply that right to the work world as well. But that I think is something that you really can bring from a sports career into the workplace is, how to work with competition. That there's opportunities to partner, but you all are competing at the same time, and there's a way to work through that. Thoughts?
Well, I think it's that level of competition that allows for the appreciation of other folks' skills and appreciation for the strengths that he or she bring to the table across a spectrum of things. It's a great opportunity to learn from those strengths, sometimes from those weaknesses, but also especially in kind of a small community like this, is you get to see the top competitors and the hard workers, and you get to admire them, and then you get to be friends with them, and then you get to serve our state a little bit better together.
Yeah, because you're always looking for how to do better, and what make you do better. Seeing someone else shine, right? It's not supposed to be viewed as a negative. It's supposed to be viewed as a positive. So when we think of competition, how did she beat me? You know, let's go back. Let's check the film, right?
Yes.
What did she do differently? Did she get out quicker than I did? Did she come on the back stretch a little stronger? Like, you want to break it down so you can know in the future, like, I can make this better. So you can take a win or a loss and always strive to grow, to do better. And I love what you had said earlier about measurement, like looking at those measurements and success as it relates to that.
And the finish line now is a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know, there's interim finish lines, but really what we're all working for is just the slight improvement of the world for everyone around us.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there's when you have this understanding, you then respect the other for their hard work and preparation, and then you can appreciate.
Yeah.
So I think it leads to healthier work environments. You know, if you can
Healthier competition.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think it identifies partnership opportunities.
Yes.
To your point, we can all work together, and you know, I'll apply it to what we do here at the State Chamber. We wake up every day just trying to make Delaware a better place, and there are so many organizations out there that are trying to do the same thing, and so we can work together.
Right. And if one person could do it all, then there would not be a need for a team.
Right.
Okay. There is no one perfect person. So there's always going to be someone who knows more than what you know, or knows something more in a different area of what you know. It's what you bring to the table, and you have to know that it adds value.
Yes.
Regardless of what it is, it still adds value. The top of the food chain, the president, the CEO, they have to have a team because they cannot do it all. There's not enough time in the day to do it all, actually. So, yes.
Absolutely.
I think we're getting close to time, but I still have two more questions. This one's specifically for Tamara, although Ted, you are welcome to join in. But I came across a stat that I'm going to read to you. But Ernst & Young did a study and found that 94% of women in the C-suite were former athletes. 52% of those women were collegiate athletes. And I'm just thinking, is there enough recognition in the corporate world for leadership development that happens on the field or the court or the rink in my case?
That's a good one. No. Not at all. I think we could bring more highlights in those areas to our boardrooms and things like that. Just recognizing the ability to lead, to adapt, as we stated earlier, the leadership skill set that you have, the different characteristics and traits that come with athletes. It's just, I just feel like women in particular, they sometimes are overlooked in those spaces. And I think that if there was more arms around that, it could add more value. And that's how I feel about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will give you an opportunity to react if you'd like to.
I think it's wonderful with two two little girls playing lacrosse and doing lots of running and everything. I'm very excited for that valuable athletic experience to pay off in the boardroom someday.
Yeah, it makes them just a well-rounded individual.
Absolutely.
So, okay. For employers embracing skills-first hiring, we've talked a lot throughout this whole episode of just like different skills you've acquired, lessons learned that you're really like applying every day as a professional. So if this trend for skills first hiring that we've been seeing is so important, and we know that athletes come with a lot of transferable skills, what should they be looking for in former athletes that may not show up in traditional credentials?
I think that's a great question. At Gray Fox, we always prioritize, that kind of comprehensive picture of an individual, and the not only just the fit on the team, but the like kind of demonstrated capacity, across a lifetime. And I think that element plays very well on the athletic side, because and we see so many resumes, but the neat part when you see that segment of an athletic experience, it shows an interest in a little bit of extra effort there, and regardless of that, the extent of that effort, I think any type of athletic experience demonstrates extra effort. And then as you get down the path, you can, see how that plays into the grit of the development and the solutions-oriented approach of athleticism that builds into the workplace, of being able to adjust to the different scenarios like Tamara had talked about earlier, and figure out the right path. And after a certain point, you can teach the other things,
right?
But it's hard to teach those fundamental resilience that require a lifetime to learn.
I love that.
That's a great answer.
I was just going to add on to his great comment there, just the level of commitment and dedication, being able to stay laser focused on a goal, because you can't have a priority in place and we were working towards a priority and then you get another priority and you're not able to multitask. Because I think that's another thing that we can do, speaking from Ted's point of view, with all of the different sports within one that he has been able to accomplish and go to the Olympics and compete on an international level, like that's phenomenal. And we don't talk about that enough, about the multifaceted areas that we are able to do all at once, and we don't drop the ball. Like, we want to see, it's something, it's our innate competitive nature in an athlete that we have to see things through to the end. And if we don't, that's us up at night, like on our phones, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this to work? Like, we know that we're all like that.
Do you both email yourselves?
Yes.
Like in the wee hours of the night, so you wake up in the morning and don't
email
forget?
And text myself.
Oh, wow.
And I have running notes on both cell phones because I have two.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a big note person. And a serial self-emailer.
Yes.
But I almost think that when you see some sort of involvement in a sport on a resume, that is the credential, right? Because I think what you were alluding to, Ted, is that just shows all of the soft skills that you can't always teach a person.
Totally agree.
Focus, goal setting, adaptability, collaboration, and at least speaking for our members, that's what we hear they're craving from candidates. And so if you can show that on a resume or portray it in an interview, it really sets yourself apart.
Totally agree.
Yep.
Totally.
So I think that I am out of questions, but I do want to give you both the opportunity. I feel like I guided the question. Is there, Tamara or Ted, do you want to ask anything of the other? You can say no. We did it.
No, I think Kelly, you did a fabulous job.
You really did.
Yeah,
Thank you
this has
so
been
much.
So enjoyable.
This was, like I said, I led with that. I was really excited about this one. I'm very passionate about the topic, and so I really did enjoy sitting down with you both. Yeah. But before we wrap, we do a fun little segment called Combo Connections, and I want to give you both the opportunity to just give a shout out to person or company in Delaware that you think deserves a little love. Ted, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. As we talk about team, if you don't mind, I would love to shout out to my wife, Sarah, big team member there, and she does an absolutely incredible job. And then to my business partner, Kevin Dombrowski, who has a fabulous approach and a wonderfully complementary set of skills. It's a treat to work with both of them.
That's
on
amazing.
A day-to-day basis.
And Kevin was in my leadership Delaware class. We referred we thought we were siblings in another life.
And he's a big fan of yours.
I'm a big fan of him. Tamara?
That's awesome. I think I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Delaware State University, and President Dr. Tony Allen and our chairman of the Board of Trustees, Leroy Tice, who is actually a neighbor to this building.
Okay. I think he's in this building. Oh no, he's next door. Yes.
Yeah. So, and I also want to give a shout out to my children who also were students, or my son is still a current student at DSU, getting his master's, and my daughter graduated last year, summa cum laude. So shout out to them and all the wonderful, amazing, incredibly talented students at DSU.
That's great. I'm going to follow suit. I'll give a shout out to my husband and my mom too, because, you know, we have a 1-year-old right now, and to work a full-time job and compete at the national level as an adult with a 1-year-old, it was difficult. But both his parents and my parents really stepped in to support and help us this past year. So a very supportive family, and I love that they allow me to keep pursuing my passion. But then also shout out to my team, which I know I've done on the podcast before. I'm going to do it again. But as I mentioned earlier, like, we are very much a family structure here. We're so collaborative, and we thrive off of each other, and couldn't do it without them.
Yeah.
How wonderful.
Awesome.
Okay, so before I let you both go, if anyone who's listening to this podcast would like to get in touch with you, Tamara, how can they reach you?
You can reach me by cell phone or by email. My cell phone number is 302-603-5399, or by email at tstoner, tstoner, @desu.edu.
Wow, she gave out her cell phone.
Yeah.
She's
It's
very
business.
accessible.
I have to.
Well, I'll follow suit. I'll go along. My cell phone number, 302-228-8916, or my email, T, like the first letter of my first name, Lauzen, my last name, L-A-U, Z like in zebra, E-N, at greyfoxwealth.com, GREYFOX, like the little animal, wealth, WEALTH.
Awesome. And if you have any questions, suggestion for future episode topics, or just want to get in touch with me or any of my colleagues at the State Chamber, you can find our contact information on our website, dscc.com. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. Thank you both again so much. I truly appreciate you both coming on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Delaware Deep Dive, brought to you by the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce. Before we sign off, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen. I know podcast hosts say this all the time, but your support is invaluable, and it helps other listeners easily find us. I'm your host, Kelly Basil. We'll see you soon.